Hi, I'm Grant Schnarr, Associate Professor at Bryn Athyn College. Welcome to the Institute for Swedenborg Studies. This is a course based on the teachings of the 18th century scientist and theologian Emanuel Swedenborg and his experiences with life after death. It's called the afterlife. Today we're going to be talking about the very beginning of entering into the other life. I call it entering eternity. And it's when we pass away, those first steps we take or experiences we have in the other life. And it will be based on Swedenborg's book, Afterlife, pages 3 through 29. But before we can get to those, I just want to give some really big generalizations here about what the afterlife is like and why we're here and the whole purpose of creation. How's that for a beginning? So let's start with that. Okay, so we're going to be talking about some really big questions just to get acclimated here. And that first question is, what is the purpose of us being here on earth? Why are we here? It's got to be one of the biggest questions of all time. And again, there's many different answers to that question. I'm trying to give you a sense of what Swedenborg would say to fit that right in the pocket of what we're going to talk about. But also, it just makes a lot of sense to me. Why are we here? Why am I here? Now, some would say it's an accident. You know, it just all happened. Some Big Bang theory or some two molecules came together and here we are. But it doesn't make sense to me, and I wonder if it does to you, if you really think about it, that I'm here simply by some freak accident. I'm going to be here for a while, I'm conscious, and then I'm going to disappear, and it means nothing. I just can't buy that. It makes more sense to me that there is a purpose than that there is no purpose. Descartes, if you've studied philosophy, almost everybody's heard of Descartes. Descartes says, I think, therefore I am. And I think what that means in a nutshell is, since I'm conscious, I can conclude from that I am something, that I'm here. Now, what I like to do is take that a step further. Okay, I have that consciousness, that existence, but I like to say, I think, therefore I am, and if I am for a reason. If I'm here, it's for a reason. If I'm conscious, if I'm living out this life, if I'm growing in all kinds of ways, is it for nothing, or is it that I'm being prepared for something? Now, I think with college students, you can look at your life and say, well, I haven't lived that long, so it's hard for me to see how much I'm preparing for, except for maybe going out and getting a job and all those kinds of things. But when you've been around for a while and had so many experiences, you think about all the things that you've gone through, both the good and the bad, the trials and tribulations and all the joyful times, all the things that you've learned over the decades. I think about those and I can see I've grown. I'm learning. I feel so much like I'm being prepared for something. Now, maybe I don't know completely what that is. How can I know? But what is cool, what is just amazing is the way Swedenborg says, you're being prepared for a place in heaven with God and community and growth forever and ever. And this is the place where we make the choices on earth. What do we want to become? Do we want to become loving people? God is a God of love, is reaching out to us, and in our own freedom, just wanting us to learn to bring that love into ourselves, to live that love and emulate it, and to connect with one another. So while we're here on earth, that's what we're doing. We're preparing for our eternal existence and growth in the other life. Now, what I'd like to do is to really bring this home is to show you a video from Off the Left Eye and Curtis Childs, and it's called, What Are Heaven and Hell?
For people that think heaven and hell exist, there are basically two theories. That they are locations in an afterlife, like, oh, I'm in heaven. Or that they're states of mind, oh, I'm in hell. Swedenborg comes down decisively on the side of both. Heaven is the mindset you'd expect. loving other members of the human race, the joy of helping them, the peace of not craving things, community, camaraderie. Hell is selfishness, obsessing, despising other people, trying to hurt or take things from them, and the frustration, isolation, and misery that brings. But after we die, we naturally gravitate toward like-minded people. So people who are altruistic and compassionate come together and create communities that are heaven, while people who are spiteful and revenge-seeking make each other's life hell. But we don't have to wait until we die. We're communicating with heaven and hell every day. Just like we absorb opinions from news channels and Facebook friends and real friends, the good thoughts and feelings in our minds are actually coming to us from heaven, and the dysfunctional, destructive ones come courtesy of hell. So, are heaven and hell states of mind or actual places? Yes.
So just before we move on to the purpose of the other world, I wanted to read you this quote from Swedenborg's book, Divine Providence, about why we're here. The purpose of creation is a heaven from the human race. Every person has been created to live to eternity in a blessed state. Every person has thus been created to enter heaven. Now, later we'll get into it. Doesn't mean everybody's going to choose to go to heaven, but everybody was created for that purpose. So now we're moving on to, we've talked about the earthly world, or why we are on earth, and it's a preparation for heaven. Now I want to talk about the spiritual world. And the first thing is just to distinguish, if I can, the spiritual world from the natural world. When Swedenborg talks about the spiritual world, he simply means the world that we enter into after we depart here. So we have this natural existence, this natural reality, and then we have the spiritual world, which is the spiritual existence, the spiritual reality as our lives go on. Now, what Swedenborg does, if you want to call it he shows us, if you want to call it a geography of the other world. And I think anybody familiar with any religious Christian, Judeo-Christian teachings would probably catch this right away. So if we were to say in the spiritual world, what is the highest place that people go in the spiritual world? Well, yes, heaven, right? So, and it's very easy if you ask a student, so for people who believe in heaven and hell, what is the lowest place that we would go? We would think of, yes, of course, hell, okay? Now, I'm going to put one more thing up there, and that is Swedenborg talks about that there is a world in between, and he calls it the world of spirits. Now, what I want to say is, when I teach this course, I make sure this is one thing the students know, that there's a big difference between the spiritual world and the world of spirits. The spiritual world is the whole thing here. You know, is heaven, world of spirits, and hell. The world of spirits is a very particular place where we are coming, as we will talk about in a moment, where we are coming into our own and who we really are and moving into our final destination. Anyway, going back to that quote, that we are here preparing each of us for a life in heaven. So what is the purpose of heaven? And I think for a lot of people don't think about it. It's sort of like, well, I just want to get in. You know, a lot of people just think about, well, the pearly gates, let's get in through there, and I've, done my job. But Swedenborg's depiction, as we'll see, of heaven is a very real place and has a very specific purpose that goes on and grows and never ends. And that is, if you want to put it in a nutshell, that what heaven is, it is an eternal growing union with God, an eternal growing community with others. All right, so basically, heaven is eternal connection. Now, let me just say that again because it's a mouthful, But why are we going to heaven? Why do we want to go to heaven? What's it about? Why, God of love, why is He bringing us there? He's bringing us there in our own freedom so that He can connect with us deeply, that love flow into us and flow through us and grow every day, so to speak, for eternity. Now, the other thing about that, if it's just us and God, okay, that's pretty cool. Here's God, feel the love, all right. But it's that we're together in heaven with all other people who have freely chosen to, again, have that connection with God, bring that love of God and that wisdom of God into themselves and flow through themselves. So that connection in heaven with one another is an eternal, growing connection of love, friendship, fellowship, anything you want to call it, that is in relationship. Okay? So that's what heaven's about. God wants us to be with him and with others and live in a state of happiness and joy. That's heaven. Now, let's go down and so what's the purpose of hell then? Now, wow, a lot of different religions teach a lot of different things. And one of the things that Swedenborg teaches that is just completely opposite is that hell is not an eternal place where God can punish us forever because we didn't do what he says, okay? Evil brings its own punishment, but hell isn't a place where God punishes us. And we'll get into that whole thing later on. What is hell, according to Swedenborg? Hell is the absence of God. Hell is a place that, so to speak, a state of mind that we can go, or people can go, who don't want to be with God, who don't want to love other people, who don't want to have fellowship with others, and can be in a very selfish place, a selfish place of love of self, love of money, or whatever. They have a right to do that. They have a right not to enter into an eternal existence of love or connection with God. So basically, what is the purpose of hell? Actually, I'm going to put it one word: freedom. Now, doesn't that sound weird? But hell exists so that we can be free. That we can be free to choose not to love God. It's weird, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's a quote I like to sometimes say, that God loves us so much that he lets us go to hell. I mean, that's how great God's love is. He wants us to be free. He wants us to love him. And love and freedom go hand in hand. And so when we freely love God, we're choosing heaven. We're choosing a life of growth forever. But that only works if we have a choice not to do that. A choice to turn away, to say, I don't want this. And we'll see in the near-death experience even more that there are people who've had the near-death experience who have seen spirits who they say don't want to go to the light. They're confused. They're turning the other way. That may be some of those spirits that Swedenborg is talking about who are on their way to hell, just deluded by their own false notions about what life's like and a selfish life. Anyway, so what's the world of spirits for? The world of spirits is a place where we are prepared, our final preparation, prepared for I'm just going to put eternal destination. I'll put that. It's just going to take me along. A destination. You don't have to read it. It's just there, okay? But the world of spirits is not, some people ask, wait, is it purgatory? And as far as I learned from my students and I've studied, purgatory pretty much I've asked, isn't that a place where you don't want to stay, you want to get out of and everything? And they're like, yeah, you're going to learn some lessons and you got to go. No, that's not what the world of spirits is. The world of spirits, yes, is in between the two, as in purgatory. But the world of spirits is a place where we are coming into our own, where we are being prepared for that final destination. Everybody still has a mix of good and evil within them, although what Swedenborg says is that people have chosen through their life to predominantly love one or the other, to predominantly be a good person or predominantly be a selfish person. But there's still things that we're holding on to. We're not perfected in that goodness, say. So in the other world, there's a time in this world of spirits where we are coming into who we are. We are coming into a full love, let's say, of heaven, that we don't have to hold on to any of that other stuff anymore. And it's also true with people who have chosen a life of evil and a life of hell. They don't have to hold on to that good stuff anymore. They can come into, so to speak, the purity of who they really are, okay? So I know that's huge subjects, but that's the purpose of the other world. The purpose of heaven is an eternal connection with God and with people, joy, eternal joy. The purpose of hell is freedom, to give us the freedom to do that or not. Is it a happy place? No, not really, but we bring our own punishment, our own unhappiness with us. And that world of spirits is simply a place where we first wake up and come into where we are prepared, we prepare ourselves to enter into one of these eternal homes or destinations. So let me read you something here about that, and that is what Swedenborg says about the purpose of heaven. Every person has been created to live eternally in a blessed state. The Lord did not create the universe for his own sake, but for the sake of those who would be with him in heaven. And one more. The heavens are made up of countless communities, kindred souls gravitate toward each other spontaneously, as it were, for with each other they feel as though they are with their own family at home. When they are with kindred souls, they enjoy the fullest freedom and find life totally delightful.